Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Six Pillars to Health, where we discuss various topics on how we can all prevent, treat, and sometimes even reverse chronic conditions through the evidence-based therapeutic interventions of lifestyle medicine. My name is Dr. Victoria Collazo, PharmD. I am a board-certified lifestyle medicine pharmacist, as well as the host of the show. And today we have a guest. She's streaming in via Zoom. Her name is Keydella Fuller. She is a functional health consultant as well as a family nurse practitioner. And we are going to be discussing sleep, energy, nutrition, and gut health. Welcome, Keydella, to Six Pillars to Health. I'm so happy to have you on today because sleep and energy is something I think we all want to get and have enough of each and every day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Victoria, for inviting me onto your show. Looking forward to talking to you about this topic.
So awesome. I'm so happy to have you here. Now, my very first question, right, we're just going to jump right into the conversation. So you're a family nurse practitioner as well as a functional health consultant. How did you get into functional health? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Right. So I have been working in cardiology for, probably 8 years as a nurse at the bedside and as a nurse practitioner. And really, after having our own struggles with my family, my husband particularly, with just chronic fatigue, like day after day, difficulty getting out of bed in the morning, doctor after doctor, lab test after lab test coming back normal, and really needing stimulant medication just to get up out of bed and start his day in the morning. One day, I just was like, there has to be another way. This cannot be our life for the rest of our lives together. Like, I didn't sign up for this. So that's when I started researching and digging and found functional medicine. And I really dug deep, sought training in the field. And now I specialize in helping men and women increase their energy and mental focus by addressing imbalances in the gut.
I think that is so awesome and so much needed, right? Like, I mean, I know, from a pharmacist perspective, so many individuals come in on prescription sleep aids as well as looking for ways to increase their energy. So I'm so glad that you're on the show today, that you can enlighten and educate us all on these topics. So another question that I have, we know that good health starts in our gut, and we've all heard the term microbiome, right? Can you talk a little bit more about the microbiome and why it's important?
Absolutely. So I think now more than ever, everyone is talking about the importance of gut health and where everyone knows about probiotics, prebiotics, and, are you taking a probiotic? But really and truly, the microbiome and our gut health really impacts every aspect of our being. Back in 2007, when the National Institutes of Health launched their Human Microbiome Project, it really expanded the medical community's knowledge about the importance of all of the trillions of bacteria that live within us and how important they are, not only to making sure everything functions properly, but even reducing chronic illness. Imbalances in the microbiome has been linked to the development of illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, and even autoimmune conditions, to name a few. But I think when we think of bacteria, especially over the past few years with COVID, we think like, oh my gosh, bacteria is bad. We're like programmed to kill the bacteria. However, studies show that the more bacteria we are exposed to, especially during childhood, the better for our health. Like I said, we have trillions of microorganisms that are live not only within us, but even on our body, on our skin. And it's estimated that we have 10 times more bacterial cells than actual human cells.
I know. Isn't that amazing? Like, wow. So our
Yes.
gut bacteria, so truly, right? Good health does start in our gut. Another
Correct.
question that I have for you, how does this gut bacteria impact our sleep, right? When we think sleep, sometimes, isn't it just in our head? Isn't it just with our eyes how we sleep? So how does that gut bacteria impact our sleep?
Right. Yes, that's a great question. So all of these trillions of bacteria, they live in in harmony, in our body. And when we have imbalances, then, certain bacteria kind of tend to overgrow and cause harm. The bacterial harmony not only helps impact our mood, our weight, our digestion, but even our sleep and immune function. So there's an article in the Sleep Medicine Reviews Journal that reported that short or fragmented sleep is associated with dysbiosis or imbalances in the gut bacteria.
Right.
Lack of sleep has been shown to increase that stress hormone cortisol, which we all know.
Mm-hmm.
And it leads to actually dysfunction or dysbiosis in the gut bacteria. So lack of sleep changes our bacteria, which then changes the way our bacteria responds and sends signal to our body, causing us to have that fatigue, causing us to have those food cravings,
Right.
and impacting our weight.
So it is related, right? It's not just sleep problem or other issues. It really does generate at that root, which is gut health. How interesting.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think that connection, when we think of like preventing and treating and even getting rid of certain conditions, we need to always look at the root cause. And Six Pillars to Health is always talking about getting to the root cause, and our gut health plays a huge role. So when we talk about sleep, what are some harms of lack of sleep, right? Is it really a big deal? Should we just sleep when we die? Or, that term, sleep when you're dead, right? Sleep is overrated. What are the harms
Correct.
of lack of sleep?
Yeah, so before I dive into that question, I just wanted to add to your last question about, the mind, body, and mind, gut, brain connection.
Right?
We have this vagus nerve, which runs basically from our head down to our stomach. And basically, whatever impacts our gut health from that vagus nerve impacts our brain and vice versa.
Right.
So not only is our gut bacteria making our energy and giving out different hormones, but it actually is estimated that 400 times more melatonin, which we all know is the sleep hormone, is produced in the gut than in the brain. So definitely very impactful if our gut is out of balance. Some of
Absolutely.
the harms of lack of sleep, other than being exhausted and fatigued the next day, increasing your risk of having a heart disease, irregular heartbeats, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, decreased libido, mood changes, depression, anxiety, weight gain, the list kind of goes on and on. However, there is hope because just as lack of sleep causes all of these things, you know, good, adequate, restorative sleep has the ability to do the opposite, to help us have better moods, sharper concentration, lower the risk of chronic illness, and we're able to maintain our weight more effectively. Studies show that when we are more fully rested, we make better food choices the next day.
Absolutely. And just touching on those chronic conditions that you mentioned, right? All heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, right? Those are all conditions where medical interventions are going to need to take place. You may end up with a prescription in hand, right? So again, thinking back to preventing, treating, and reversing diseases, or, decreasing your need for prescription medication, sleep plays a huge role.
Yes. And like you said, not many people think about sleep. Sleep when I'm dead. I don't have time to sleep. There's so much to do.
Right. Super important to prioritize our sleep. I love all the pillars of lifestyle medicine, but definitely I have prioritized my sleep since way back, long time ago. And I've told the story of how my mom was in labor for 23 hours with me. So even back to being in utero, right? I've always enjoyed those warm, comfy places and get up. I like to get up when my eyes just open and, Sleep is just so important. So I'm glad that you are co-signing that pillar of lifestyle medicine and educating and encouraging people to get that good night's sleep. What are some ways that we can get better sleep, right? So if we find ourselves in this situation where maybe we're having troubles falling asleep, staying asleep, or anything in between, how can we get better sleep?
Well, just like you said, I think the first thing that we all need to do is really make sleep non-negotiable. We need to prioritize it. Not only does it set us up for an awesome next day, but it actually has been shown to increase productivity and also helps us to achieve our goals.
Right.
But on an even more important, a step beyond prioritizing sleep, is this thing that's very common and frequently undiagnosed. And if you have it, fixing it can have tremendous impact on not only sleep, but every aspect of your health, from managing your weight and your blood pressure control. And that's sleep disorders, specifically sleep apnea. I was at a conference earlier in the summer, and he mentioned this crazy statistic about like 80% of people with severe sleep apnea don't even know that they have it.
Wow.
So I screen all of my clients for this, and it's simple enough. Some questions that I ask that then sends off a signal that we need to do further testing or screening is, do you snore loud enough that someone in the next room can hear you? Do you wake up, after a full night's rest, after sleeping 6, 7, 8 hours, and you still feel completely exhausted, like you could fall asleep at any moment during the day? Has your sleep partner ever like nudged you or woken you up because you just maybe weren't breathing properly?
Right.
Or do you ever wake up at night coughing or gasping for air? Like, if you experience any of these, please, please, please talk to your health provider about getting a sleep study, because it can literally save your life.
Yeah. Yes.
But in addition,
I'm sorry,
in addition
Keydella, I was going
to,
to say, yeah,
it's
absolutely
okay.
get that sleep study, right? It sounds like, oh, whatever, sleep study's not that important. But as we can, from Keydella's advice, it is super important and can save you, health consequences and increase in health risks, et cetera. I'm sorry, Keydella, go ahead.
It's okay, but right, but from my experience, because not many screen for it, some people kind of normalize it and they don't even realize that it's not normal for me to wake up like this in the middle of the night, coughing or having to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
But other ways we can make some changes to help get better sleep if we don't have sleep apnea is to have a sleep routine, try to set a bedtime. Go to sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time. We are creatures of habits. Our brain likes to be in like knowing what's next. But trying to stick with this bedtime even on the weekends, which is tough for some people.
Yeah.
And, if you're going to bed now after midnight and you realize that your ideal bedtime is 10 a.m., then it's unrealistic to like wake up on day one and say, okay, I'm going to go to bed at 10 a.m. today. I mean, at 10 p.m. today instead of 12 a.m. So work in 15-minute increments. Every week, try to get to bed 15 minutes earlier. And before you know it, you will have set an earlier bedtime. Making sure your room temperature is not too hot. Our body temperature actually cools down when we sleep, so we sleep better when it's nice, like, cooler. And dress comfortably for your area that you live. Try not to eat ideally 4 hours, but even 2 hours before bed. If you think about it, if you go to bed with a full belly, then for the first few hours of your sleep, your body's going to be focused on digesting and absorbing the food that you just ate, rather than getting that restful and restorative healing sleep.
Right.
Making sure your room is nice and dark and oh, I'm so sorry. Making sure that the room is dark, and the darker the better as far as melatonin release. At least 1 hour before bed, try to put the screen away, again, because the light will affect that release of melatonin. And you can fill that time with either doing some journaling, some reading, taking a relaxing bath, prayer, meditation, and even doing some breath work.
Right. Those are all awesome recommendations. We're going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with this conversation, and we're going to talk about energy, how we can increase our energy, why it's important, and all of the things. So stay with me. We'll be back here in 2 minutes.
Aloha! Joe Silva here with Kukua Technologies. I'm excited to see you on Tuesdays on Morning Coffee for our tech tips.
Let's face it, lawyers get a bad rap. I'm Erin Brucey, host of Legal Breakdown, where we dissect legal topics for the everyday viewer, with a mix of interesting guests to talk about current events and hot legal topics. Let's work together to make the law accessible and relevant to everyone. Catch us every week on RVN Television.
A stroke can be easy to detect. A loved one can't speak, perhaps they can't move. But there's another sign of a stroke that many of us can't see. It's called spatial neglect, and it can occur during or after a stroke, causing distorted visual movements. Fortunately, there's a solution by using optical prism technology during rehabilitation. If you or a loved one have experienced a stroke, ask your doctor about spatial neglect. Spatial neglect. See the whole picture at KesslerFoundation.org.
Hello and welcome back to Six Pillars to Health. Today we are talking about everything that is sleep, energy, nutrition, and how it relates to our gut health. We are joined by Keydella Fuller. She is a functional health consultant and family nurse practitioner at Fuller Health and Wellness. And prior to the break, we were talking about why sleep is important, how we can improve our sleep, and how it plays in our overall health. We're going to switch gears a little bit here, and we're going to talk about energy, because I think energy is something that we're all looking to gain, especially with all of the responsibilities and things that we have to do in our 24-hour day. So Keydella, let's talk about energy. How can we increase our energy?
Well, Victoria, that is a loaded question because it's different for everyone.
Right.
So what I like to ask is what's at the root cause of that lack of energy?
Right.
Is it poor diet, poor sleep routine, excess caffeine intake, stress, hormone imbalance, gut imbalance, dehydration? I mean, the list goes on and on. And it can be a combination of all of those things. So the first step, which many are familiar with, is to address what we just talked about, creating a good bedtime, sleep routine. Then, of course, cleaning up the diet, making sure, we're eating foods that are going to fuel our body for energy as opposed to making us exhausted and fatigued afterwards. Managing stress, getting off excess caffeine. By doing these things, we help support normal hormonal function and improve gut health in the process. So if you think about it, we get the most bang for our buck, so to speak.
Right.
And of course, we all know we get our fuel from food, so we need to make sure that we're eating enough calories throughout the day and at the right time of the day so that we're fueling ourselves. Getting a little bit technical here, so if it gets to be too much, let me know. So when we eat, we have mitochondria that then takes those foods and those proteins and break it down into ATP energy.
Yeah.
And that is really where our energy comes from. Without healthy mitochondria to make appropriate energy, our cells would not be able to function properly. So with my clients, I actually focus on mitochondrial health and showing love and support to the mitochondria.
That is very interesting. Mitochondria is a word that takes me right back to biology in like high school, right? So can you talk a little bit more about the role of the mitochondria and explain to us how that all works in our body?
Of course. So a lot of people know the mitochondria as like the powerhouse of the cells. Like I said, it's where we make our energy. And they actually have their own DNA. So we have DNA and the mitochondria actually has their own DNA.
Right.
Some cells have more mitochondria than others, depending on the amount of energy the cells need to produce. So think about, every muscle that we have in our body, the heart, the liver, even the brain, and how much energy they need to make every second of every day just for us to function appropriately.
Right.
So healthy mitochondria helps keep those organs functioning properly. I have to mention some people, although very rare, are born with a mitochondrial dysfunction, in which case, they progress very early and very sick, depending on, which area of the body is really affected, which essentially could be every part of the body. But we can actually damage our DNA through the health and lifestyle that we choose to live. So things such as poor diet, smoking, excessive alcohol use, pesticides, or other chemical exposures can actually cause damage to our mitochondrial health. So, every day we come into contact with daily stressors from our environment, from things that we put on our bodies, from our food. And when our body's functioning optimally, we're able to handle all of that extra stress. So the normal body functions, to produce energy, also produces, free radicals or oxidative stress. But our body is able to produce this like neutralizing antioxidants to take care of and clean up all of that stuff.
Right.
But think about it. If think about it as, our body's under attack and our soldiers are the antioxidants that we produce. And if, we're being attacked here by poor diet, and we're being attacked here by, smoking and excess sugar and excess alcohol intake and environmental toxins, then our soldiers are essentially spread too thin. And then the oxidative stress and free radicals kind of have the opportunity to take over, causing damage to our DNA and our mitochondrial DNA, which then leads to the development of illness. And then also, because that's where we get our energy from, we're also going to be exhausted and fatigued and then not sleep well, and it's going to affect our gut. And the cycle kind of goes on and on and on. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So speaking of antioxidants, right? How do we get more antioxidants in our body to help us with these free radicals?
Right. So, especially the past few years, everyone's talking about antioxidants, right? As far as supplements that you can take, but let's talk about ways that you can do this naturally in your diet. Mm-hmm. So foods that are going to be high in omega-3 and CoQ10, such as fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, even sardines, whole grains like flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp, and even algae, are going to have those omega-3 fatty acids that we need. And if you think about it like this, all of these omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. And we need that because the oxidative stress causes inflammation. So we take all these omega-3s and anti-inflammatory foods, which are going to be healing and reducing that inflammation. We kind of neutralize that stress. So making sure we're getting our fruits and vegetables, pretty much all of our fruits and vegetables are loaded with not only vitamins, minerals, but they also have these antioxidants that we can use. Broccoli, kale, spinach, blueberries, strawberries, eat the rainbow. I like to say have vegetables even with breakfast, and eat a variety of different colorful foods throughout the year. And one easy way to do this is by eating what's in season in your area, because it's naturally going to be changing, and it will also taste the best at that time as well.
Absolutely. And, so here again, we're hearing from the family nurse practitioner. We've heard it from a dietitian. You want to eat the colors of the rainbow because you're getting those vitamins, minerals, fiber, right? Water, and those phytochemicals that are really going to help you prevent, treat, reverse disease. They're going to increase your metabolic health. And what I love about chia seeds, in chia seeds, you can get 1 tablespoon, I believe it's 2.5 grams of ALA, which is that alpha linoleic acid, which is that omega-3, right? And those omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. And when we look at the root cause of chronic diseases, it goes back to that gut health and being in a state of chronic inflammation. So anything that we can consume to help aid in this inflammation and decrease it is going to help us with other chronic conditions, right? So this is all over time, right? Sometimes we wake up and we go see Keydella and she tells us we have a new diagnosis, but if we look at our behaviors from over time and we can find that root cause and then make some changes, we can find that we're gonna get healthier, right? And ultimately, to me, that's what health is, right? Like it's getting better, it's decreasing your dose, it's maybe getting off of those medications. So thank you for again co-signing my eating the colors of the rainbow, because I advocate eat as many as you can, right? Just crowd, keep bringing them and crowding out the bad stuff.
Correct. Absolutely.
Absolutely. You know what? We are almost out of time already, Keydella. I cannot believe how quickly this time has gone by, but I want our viewers to know how they can contact you so that if they want to get in touch with you, have a consultation, meet you on Zoom for a one-on-one, they can absolutely do that. So please let us know how we can find you.
Sure. So you can go to my website, KeydellaFuller.com. So that's KeydellaFuller.com. There you have links to all my social media accounts and as well as my calendar so you can schedule a call.
So awesome. Thank you so much for being here and giving us some tips, some strategies that we can start implementing to make these changes so that we can sleep better, we can wake up and feel energized and full of energy and not have to chase our day with more caffeine, and so that we can have better moods, because life is just filled with responsibilities and they're not going to stop, right? We're just going to have to keep trucking through those 24 hours. But if we feel good and we're energized and we have good nutrition and ultimately a good night's sleep, we're going to find that we're going to be able to power through our day. So thank you so much for being on to 6 Pillars to Health. It was an awesome conversation. And if you want to reach out to Keydella, she has given you the information. And if not, I will see you on the next episode of 6 Pillars to Health. And until then, I want you to take good care and be well.